On Christmas Eve, Jack Williams sat in the HR office while Olivia Rachel signed the paper that ended his career. Termination. Effective immediately. Gross violation of safety protocols. 5 years of perfect attendance. 5 years of never missing a single shift. Gone in one signature. Jack didn't argue, didn't beg. He simply looked at Olivia and asked one question. Do you actually believe what's written in that report? Olivia's pen stopped moving. She didn't answer. And as Jack walked out into the December snow, neither of them knew that this moment would eventually bring them together. What happens next will completely change everything you thought you knew about enemies and second chances. But before we continue, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, let's get back to the story. Jack drove home with both hands gripping the steering wheel, knuckles white against the cold leather. The termination letter sat folded in his coat pocket, but he could feel its weight as if it were made of iron. 7-year-old Emily was waiting for him. She had been asking about the Christmas tree all week, wondering when they would finally decorate it together. He had promised her tonight would be the night. How was he supposed to tell her that everything had just fallen apart? The accusation was simple and devastating. According to the report, Jack had deliberately bypassed safety protocols during a maintenance check, causing an incident that nearly injured a co-worker. There were witness statements. There were emails supposedly showing prior warnings. There was everything needed to justify immediate termination. Except none of it was true. Jack had not been anywhere near that section of the facility when the incident occurred. He had been on the other side of the building, completing a routine inspection. But when he tried to explain this to Olivia Rachel, the HR director simply pointed to the paperwork. The evidence is documented, Mr. William. I'm sorry. She did not sound sorry. She sounded like someone reading from a script, checking boxes, following procedure. And maybe that was the worst part. To her, he was just another file to close before the holiday break. When Jack pulled into the driveway of his small rental house, he sat in the car for a long moment. Through the window, he could see Emily's face pressed against the glass, waiting for him. She waved when she spotted the headlights. He forced himself to smile and waved back. Inside, the house smelled like the cookies Emily had tried to bake by herself. Most of them were burned, but she had arranged the salvageable ones on a plate with careful pride. "Daddy, look! I made Christmas cookies for us." Jack knelt down and pulled her into a hug, holding on a little longer than usual. "They're beautiful, sweetheart." Emily pulled back and studied his face with the unsettling perception that children sometimes possess. "Are you sad, Daddy?" Jack shook his head. "Just tired from work. How about we decorate that tree tomorrow instead? Daddy needs to rest tonight." Emily's face fell, but she nodded. She had learned not to ask too many questions when her father looked like this. She had learned a lot of things that 7-year-olds should not have to learn, especially since her mother died 3 years ago. "Okay, Daddy. Tomorrow." After Emily went to bed, Jack sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the termination letter. The words blurred together, but one name stood out clearly. Kyle Randy, his supervisor, the man who had signed off on the initial incident report. Jack had known for months that Kyle wanted him gone. It started with small things, comments about how Jack didn't fit the company culture, scheduling him for the worst shifts, passing him over for opportunities that went to less experienced workers. And then, 6 months ago, Jack had made the mistake of pointing out a significant error in one of Kyle's reports during a meeting with senior leadership. Kyle had never forgiven him for that public embarrassment. But Jack had never imagined Kyle would go this far. Across town, Olivia Rachel was also unable to sleep. She had signed hundreds of termination papers in her 15 years in human resources. It was part of the job. Companies needed to protect themselves. Employees violated policies. Consequences followed. That was how the system worked, and Olivia had built her entire career on trusting that system. But tonight, something felt different. She kept replaying the moment when Jack had asked her that question. "Do you actually believe what's written in that report?" Most employees in his position would have argued. They would have made excuses, threatened lawsuits, caused a scene. Jack had done none of those things. He had simply asked if she believed the accusations were true, and she had not been able to answer. Olivia got out of bed and opened her laptop. She pulled up Jack's personnel file, telling herself she was just doing due diligence. 5 years of employment, not a single disciplinary action until 6 months ago, when a series of minor complaints suddenly appeared in his record, all of them submitted by Kyle Randy. She scrolled further. Performance reviews from other supervisors were consistently positive. Reliable, hard-working, excellent attention to detail. The picture painted by these reviews did not match the dangerous and negligent employee described in the termination report. Olivia closed the laptop and stared at the ceiling. 15 years ago, her father had been fired from his job at a manufacturing plant. He had been accused of causing equipment damage through negligence. He had insisted he was innocent, that another supervisor had made the mistake and blamed him to cover it up. But no one had listened. No one had bothered to investigate. Her father never recovered from that betrayal. He had been a proud man who believed in hard work and fairness. When the system failed him, something inside him broke. He withdrew from life, sank into depression, and 5 years later, he was gone. Olivia had chosen human resources because she believed she could build a better system, a fairer system. She had spent her entire career creating policies and procedures designed to protect employees from exactly this kind of injustice. And tonight, she might have become the very thing she had sworn to fight against. The next evening, Olivia found herself driving home later than usual. She had spent the day reviewing Jack's file again, finding more inconsistencies, but nothing conclusive. She needed to clear her head. She stopped at the gas station on Miller Road. It was a habit from years of late nights at the office. The coffee there was terrible, but the location was convenient, sitting right along her usual route home. As she pulled up to the pump, she noticed one of the attendants wiping down a customer's windshield. The man worked quickly and efficiently despite the bitter cold, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. It was Jack William. Olivia froze with her hand on the door handle. She had just terminated this man yesterday. What was he doing working at a gas station less than 24 hours later? She watched as Jack finished with the customer and moved to the next car. His movements were mechanical, exhausted, but he never stopped working. Even in the dim lights of the gas station, she could see that his hands were red and raw from the cold. And then she noticed the car parked in the corner of the lot. It was an old sedan, at least 15 years old, with a crack running across the windshield. Through the rear window, Olivia could see a small figure sleeping in the back seat. Emily. The child was wrapped in a blanket, clutching a stuffed bear. On the dashboard, a tiny artificial Christmas tree blinked with battery-powered lights. Jack was working a night shift on Christmas Day, and his daughter was sleeping in the car because he had no one else to watch her. This was not the image of a dangerous, negligent employee who deserved to be fired. This was a father doing whatever it took to provide for his child. Olivia drove away without buying anything. But the image of Emily sleeping in that car, the little Christmas tree blinking on the dashboard, followed her all the way home. December 26th. The office was nearly empty, most employees still enjoying the holiday break. But Olivia was at her desk before dawn. She started with the witness statements. Marcus Williams, one of the employees who had supposedly witnessed Jack's safety violation, had signed a detailed account of what he saw. But when Olivia checked the attendance records, she discovered that Marcus had been on approved leave the day of the incident. He could not have witnessed something while he was not even at work. Olivia's heart began to beat faster. She pulled up the email warnings that had supposedly been sent to Jack prior to the incident. The content looked legitimate, but when she examined the metadata, something was wrong. The creation date on the files was 3 days after the dates shown in the email headers. Someone had fabricated these documents. Next, she requested the security footage from the area where the incident occurred. The IT department informed her that the original files had been corrupted, but a backup copy had been provided by Kyle Randy himself. Every piece of evidence led back to Kyle. Olivia sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She had enough to suspect that Jack had been framed, but suspicion was not proof. Kyle was a senior manager with 15 years at the company and connections throughout leadership. Going against him would mean risking everything she had worked for. She thought about her father. She thought about Jack working in the freezing cold while his daughter slept in the car. She thought about the question Jack had asked her. Do you actually believe what's written in that report? No, she did not. Olivia opened a new document and began typing notes. She would need more evidence. She would need witnesses willing to talk. She would need to be careful, because if Kyle discovered what she was doing, he would find a way to destroy her too. But she was not going to let another innocent man lose everything while she stood by and did nothing. Not this time. Olivia knew she needed to talk to Jack directly. The evidence she had found pointed toward fabrication, but she needed his side of the story to understand the full picture. She found his phone number in the personnel file and called him that evening. When he answered, his voice was guarded and cold. "Mr. William, this is Olivia Rachel from Human Resources." Silence hung on the line for a long moment. "I know who you are. You're the one who signed my termination." "Yes, I am. And I need to speak with you. I found some irregularities in your case file, and I believe there may have been errors in the process." Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Errors? That's what you're calling it now? I understand why you wouldn't trust me, but I'm asking you to meet with me, just once. After that, if you want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that." Another long silence. Olivia could hear Emily's voice in the background, asking her father who was on the phone. "Fine. There's a coffee shop on 3rd Street, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. But I'm not expecting much, Ms. Rachel. I've learned not to expect anything from people like you." The line went dead. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Olivia arrived. Jack was already there, sitting in a corner booth with a clear view of the door. He did not stand when she approached, and he did not offer his hand. Olivia slid into the seat across from him and placed a folder on the table. "Thank you for coming." Jack's expression remained unchanged. "Say what you need to say." Olivia opened the folder and spread out the documents she had gathered. The witness statement from Marcus Williams, the email metadata showing fabrication dates, the request for security footage that had conveniently been corrupted. Marcus Williams signed a statement saying he witnessed your safety violation, but according to attendance records, he was on approved leave that day. He wasn't even in the building. Jack looked at the documents but said nothing. The warning emails supposedly sent to you before the incident? The files were created 3 days after the dates on the emails. Someone backdated them. Still, Jack remained silent. And the security footage from the area where the incident occurred? The original files were deleted. The only copy we have was provided by Kyle Randy himself. At the mention of Kyle's name, something flickered in Jack's eyes. "Why are you showing me this?" His voice was quieter now, less hostile. "Why do you care?" Olivia closed the folder. "Because I signed that termination believing the evidence was legitimate. If I was wrong, then I helped destroy an innocent man's career. I need to know the truth." Jack studied her face for a long moment, searching for something. Whatever he found seemed to satisfy him, because his shoulders relaxed slightly. "Kyle Randy has wanted me gone for 2 years. He told her everything, The subtle comments about how Jack didn't fit in with the company culture, the way Kyle always scheduled him for the most difficult shifts, the opportunities that went to less qualified workers while Jack was passed over again and again. 6 months ago, I found a mistake in one of his reports. A big one. It would have cost the company serious money if it hadn't been caught. I brought it up in a meeting with the division manager. And Kyle was embarrassed. He was furious. After that, the complaints started. Minor stuff at first. Showing up late when I was actually on time, not following procedures that don't even exist, building a paper trail. Jack's jaw tightened. And then there were the messages. Messages? Jack pulled out his phone and handed it to Olivia. She scrolled through a series of texts from Kyle, spanning several months. The language was subtle but unmistakable. References to people like you and how Jack didn't belong here. Comments about how Jack should know his place. Nothing overtly racist, but the pattern was clear. I saved them all, Jack said. I knew something like this might happen eventually. I just didn't think it would happen on Christmas Eve. Olivia handed the phone back. Would you be willing to share these with me? As evidence? Jack's eyes narrowed. Evidence for what? You already fired me. What exactly are you planning to do? I'm going to prove that you were framed, and I'm going to make sure Kyle Randy faces consequences for what he did. For the first time, Jack's expression shifted into something resembling hope. But he quickly suppressed it. Why would you risk your career for me? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Olivia thought about her father, about the years of watching him fade away after the system failed him, about the promise she had made to herself when she chose this career. Because 15 years ago someone did the same thing to my father, and no one helped him. She met Jack's eyes. I'm not going to let that happen again. Over the following week, Olivia and Jack met 3 more times. The first meeting was at the same coffee shop, where Jack provided copies of all the text messages from Kyle. Olivia documented everything, building a timeline of harassment that stretched back nearly 2 years. The second meeting was at the gas station on Miller Road, where Jack was still working night shifts. Emily sat in the car doing homework while her father took a short break. Olivia brought hot chocolate for the child and coffee for Jack, and they spent 20 minutes reviewing the sequence of events leading up to the termination. The third meeting was at Jack's home. He had kept a box of documents related to his employment, including performance reviews, commendations, and the sudden flood of complaints that began after the incident with Kyle's report. Olivia photographed everything, creating a comprehensive record of the manufactured case against him. What neither of them knew was that they were being watched. Kyle had grown suspicious when he noticed Olivia accessing Jack's personnel file multiple times after the termination. A man with his connections could easily arrange for surveillance, and the photographs began to accumulate. Olivia and Jack at the coffee shop, Olivia at the gas station, Olivia entering Jack's home. The images told a story that Kyle could use. The confrontation came on the last day of December. Kyle appeared in Olivia's office doorway, his smile friendly but his eyes cold. Working late again, Olivia? You're always so dedicated. Olivia closed the file she had been reviewing. Can I help you with something, Kyle? He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I've heard some interesting things lately. About you taking a special interest in the Jack William case. I review all termination cases as part of standard procedure. Of course you do. Kyle settled into the chair across from her desk, making himself comfortable. But this particular case seems to be occupying a lot of your time. Multiple file accesses, requests for security footage, interviews with employees. He tilted his head. One might wonder why the HR director is so invested in a maintenance worker who was terminated for gross negligence. I found inconsistencies in the documentation. I'm following up. Inconsistencies. Kyle's smile widened. That's a very diplomatic way of putting it. But here's the thing, Olivia. I've been with this company for 15 years. I have relationships with every member of senior leadership. I know how things work around here. He leaned forward. And I know how it looks when a woman in your position starts spending a lot of personal time with a man like Jack William. Olivia felt her stomach tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm just pointing out that people talk. And if those people started talking about why you're really defending him, well, he spread his hands. That would be unfortunate for everyone involved. Is that a threat? It's advice from a colleague who cares about your career. Kyle stood and straightened his jacket. Let this go, Olivia. Jack William is exactly where he belongs. Don't destroy yourself trying to save someone who isn't worth saving. He walked out without waiting for a response. Olivia sat motionless for a long time after he left. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear, from anger. Kyle thought he could intimidate her into silence. He thought the threat of scandal would be enough to make her back down. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Building the case against Kyle required patience and persistence. Olivia started with Marcus Williams, the employee whose signature appeared on a witness statement for an incident he could not have witnessed. She approached him carefully, meeting him in a neutral location away from the office. Marcus was terrified. He admitted that Kyle had pressured him to sign the statement without reading it, threatening his job if he refused. But he was afraid to go on record. If I come forward, Kyle will destroy me. He's done it before. What if I could guarantee your anonymity during the initial investigation? Marcus considered this. You'd have to protect me. Promise me that. I promise. He agreed to write a detailed account of how Kyle had coerced him on the condition that his name would be withheld until formal proceedings began. The second piece came from an unexpected source. Olivia had requested a meeting with the IT department to discuss the corrupted security footage. A young technician named Danny pulled her aside afterward. I heard you're looking into the William termination. Do you know something about it? Danny glanced around nervously. Kyle asked me to modify some files a few months ago, metadata on some documents. I refused, and he threatened to have me fired. Do you have any proof of this? I kept records, screenshots of his requests, timestamps. Danny's voice dropped. And there's something else. The security footage that was supposedly corrupted. I made a backup of the original before Kyle had it deleted. He doesn't know I have it. Olivia's heart raced. Can I see it? Not yet. I need to know that you can protect me first. Kyle has a lot of power around here. I understand. But Danny, that footage could prove that Jack William was framed. An innocent man lost his job because of what Kyle did. Danny looked conflicted. Give me a few days. Let me think about it. Olivia compiled everything she had gathered into a formal request for investigation, which she submitted to the executive leadership team on the second week of January. The response was swift. A meeting was scheduled with the CEO, the chief legal officer, and the head of operations. Kyle was also present, looking confident and relaxed. Olivia presented her findings: the fabricated emails, the coerced witness statement, the suspicious handling of security footage, the pattern of harassment documented in text messages. When she finished, Kyle stood up with an expression of wounded dignity. I appreciate Olivia's thoroughness, but I think we need to address the elephant in the room. He produced a manila envelope and slid it across the table. These photographs were taken over the past 2 weeks. The executives opened the envelope and passed around the images. Olivia and Jack at the coffee shop. Olivia at the gas station. Olivia entering Jack's house. I didn't want to bring this up, Kyle continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. But it's clear that Olivia's judgment in this matter has been compromised by a personal relationship with Mr. William. I believe she's fabricating evidence to protect someone she's involved with romantically. The CEO looked at Olivia with a mixture of disappointment and suspicion. Olivia, is there any truth to these allegations? Absolutely not. I met with Mr. William to gather information for my investigation. There is nothing inappropriate about our relationship. Then why were you at his home? To review employment documents he had kept, documentation that supports his case. Kyle shook his head sadly. With all due respect, that's exactly what someone would say if they were trying to cover up an affair. The question the board should be asking is, why would a senior HR director risk her career to defend a terminated maintenance worker unless there was something more going on? The room fell silent. Olivia could see the doubt forming in their eyes. The CEO spoke carefully. Olivia, given the seriousness of these allegations, we have no choice but to suspend your investigation pending a review. You will be placed on administrative leave until we can determine whether your conduct has been appropriate. You're making a mistake. Kyle Randy fabricated evidence to fire an innocent man, and now he's fabricating allegations against me to cover his tracks. That's a serious accusation. I have evidence to support it. And we will review that evidence. The CEO's tone made it clear the conversation was over. But until then, you are not to contact Mr. William or any other parties involved in this matter. Is that understood? Olivia wanted to argue. She wanted to slam her hands on the table and demand that they listen. But she knew it would only make things worse. Understood. 3 days passed. Olivia sat in her apartment, suspended from the job she had dedicated 15 years to building. The investigation she had started was frozen. Kyle was walking around the office triumphant, and Jack was still working night shifts at a gas station, waiting for justice that might never come. Her phone rang. It was Jack. I heard what happened. One of the guys at the plant told me. I'm sorry, Jack. I tried. I know you did. That's more than anyone else has ever done for me. His voice was heavy with resignation. But maybe it's time to let this go. You've already lost too much because of me. I'm not giving up. Olivia, listen to me. Emily and I will be fine. We've survived worse than this. But you still have a chance to save your career. Don't throw it away for someone like me. Someone like you? Olivia's voice sharpened. You mean an innocent man who was framed by a bigot? That's exactly the kind of person worth fighting for. Jack was quiet for a moment. Why does this matter so much to you? Olivia closed her eyes. Because my father gave up. After he was fired, he stopped fighting. He stopped believing in himself, and I watched him disappear piece by piece until there was nothing left. Her voice cracked. I'm not going to watch that happen to you. The next afternoon, Olivia drove to Jack's house to return some documents. She knew she was violating the terms of her suspension, but she no longer cared. Emily opened the door. The little girl did not cry. She did not ask for anything. She simply looked up at Olivia with eyes that seemed far too old for a 7-year-old. Hi, Ms. Olivia. Hi, Emily. Is your dad home? He's in the kitchen. Emily stepped aside to let her in, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I made this for you. Olivia unfolded it. It was a hand-drawn Christmas card, slightly crumpled and colored with crayons. The picture showed 3 figures standing in front of a Christmas tree, a tall man, a little girl, and a woman with dark hair. That's you, Emily said, pointing to the woman. Daddy said you're a good person, so I put you in our Christmas. Olivia stared at the drawing. Her throat tightened. I hope next Christmas is happier, Emily added quietly. This one was kind of sad. She said it without self-pity, without complaint. Just a simple statement of fact from a child who had learned that happiness was not guaranteed. Jack appeared in the doorway. He saw the card in Olivia's hands and his expression softened. Emily, why don't you go finish your homework? I need to talk to Ms. Olivia for a minute. After Emily left, Jack looked at Olivia. You shouldn't be here. If they find out you came... I don't care anymore. She held up the drawing. Your daughter just gave me this. She drew me into your family Christmas because you told her I was a good person. Jack said nothing. I'm not going to let her down. I'm not going to let you down. Olivia's voice was steady now, certain. I'm going to find a way to fix this. I don't know how yet, but I will. She thought about her father, about the years of regret she carried for not being able to save him. This time would be different. The phone call came 2 days after Olivia visited Jack's house. It was Danny. I've been thinking about what you said, about Jack being innocent. His voice was nervous but determined. I can't let Kyle get away with this. If I don't speak up, he'll do the same thing to someone else. Olivia gripped her phone tighter. Are you saying you'll come forward? I'll do more than that. I'll give you the original security footage. The version Kyle doesn't know exists. They met at a diner on the outskirts of town, far from anyone who might recognize them. Danny slid a flash drive across the table. This is everything. The original footage from the day of the incident. The screenshots of Kyle's requests to modify files. All of it. Olivia picked up the flash drive. Such a small object, yet it held the power to change everything. Why did you keep this? Danny shrugged. Insurance. I knew Kyle was dangerous the moment he asked me to alter those files. I figured someday I might need proof of what he was capable of. He looked down at his coffee. I should have come forward sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. You're coming forward now. That's what matters. What happens next? Olivia tucked the flash drive into her pocket. I'm going to request an emergency meeting with the board, and this time, Kyle won't be able to talk his way out of it. The meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. Olivia had spent the weekend preparing. She reviewed every piece of evidence, organized her presentation, and rehearsed her arguments until she could recite them in her sleep. She also reached out to Marcus Williams, who agreed to submit his written statement to the board directly. When she walked into the conference room, the entire executive team was present. The CEO sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. The chief legal officer had a notepad open in front of her, and Kyle Randy sat in the corner, arms crossed, looking irritated but unconcerned. Ms. Rachel, the CEO began, you requested this meeting despite being on administrative leave. I hope you have something substantial to present. I do. Olivia connected her laptop to the room's display screen. I have evidence that will prove Jack William was wrongfully terminated, and that Kyle Randy fabricated the entire case against him. Kyle let out a dismissive laugh. Here we go again. More baseless accusations from someone whose judgment has clearly been compromised. Let her speak, the chief legal officer said sharply. Olivia pulled up the first document. This is the witness statement signed by Marcus Williams, claiming he saw Jack William violate safety protocols. However, company attendance records show that Mr. Williams was on approved leave that day. He was not in the building. She displayed the attendance log next to the witness statement. The dates matched. Marcus could not have witnessed something while he was not at work. Mr. Williams has submitted a written statement to this board confirming that he was pressured by Kyle Randy to sign the document without reading it. He was told his job would be terminated if he refused. Kyle's expression flickered, but he remained silent. Next, the warning emails supposedly sent to Mr. William prior to the incident. Olivia showed the metadata analysis. The files were created 3 days after the dates shown in the email headers. They were fabricated after the fact to build a false paper trail. The CEO leaned forward, studying the screen. And finally, the security footage. Olivia inserted Danny's flash drive into her laptop. The official version provided by Mr. Randy was edited to remove key sections, but the IT department kept a backup of the original file. She pressed play. The footage showed the facility floor on the day of the incident. The timestamp was clearly visible in the corner. At the time when Jack was supposedly committing his safety violation, The camera captured a different scene entirely. Jack was not there. He was visible on a different camera feed, on the other side of the building, conducting a routine inspection. The timestamps matched exactly. Jack could not have been in two places at once. The room fell silent. Kyle stood up abruptly. "That footage has been tampered with. She's trying to frame me." "The metadata on this file shows it was created on the original date of the incident," Olivia replied calmly. "The version you provided was modified 3 days later. Our IT department can verify this." "This is ridiculous. You're taking the word of a maintenance worker over a senior manager with 15 years of service?" The CEO's voice was cold. "Sit down, Kyle." Kyle remained standing, his face reddening. "You can't seriously believe this. She's involved with William. She admitted to meeting with him multiple times. This whole thing is a setup to protect her boyfriend." "I met with Mr. William to gather evidence for an investigation," Olivia said. "Every meeting was professional and documented. And unlike your evidence, mine can withstand scrutiny." She turned back to the executives. "I also have text messages from Mr. Randy to Mr. William spanning 2 years. The language demonstrates a clear pattern of discriminatory harassment. Mr. Randy targeted Jack William because of personal animosity and, frankly, because of racial bias." She displayed several of the messages on the screen. The phrases stood out starkly against the white background. "People like you. You don't belong here. Know your place." The chief legal officer's pen stopped moving. She looked at Kyle with an expression that had shifted from neutral to something much colder. "Kyle, do you have anything to say in response to these allegations?" Kyle's mouth opened and closed. For the first time since Olivia had known him, he seemed to have no clever response prepared. "I want my attorney present before I answer any more questions." The CEO nodded slowly. "That's probably wise, because based on what I've seen today, you're going to need one." The investigation took another 2 weeks to complete, but the outcome was never in doubt. Kyle Randy was terminated for gross misconduct, falsification of company records, and discriminatory harassment. The legal department informed him that the company would be cooperating fully with any criminal investigation that might result from his actions. Jack William was reinstated immediately. He received full back pay for the time he had been wrongfully unemployed, a formal letter of apology from the CEO, and a promotion to a supervisory position in a different department, far away from anyone who had been associated with Kyle. Olivia was cleared of all allegations and returned to her position as HR director. But more than that, she was given authorization to implement new policies designed to prevent similar incidents in the future. Independent review of termination cases. Anonymous reporting channels for employees who witnessed misconduct. Mandatory training on bias and discrimination. The system that had failed Jack would be rebuilt to protect others like him. On a quiet afternoon in late January, Jack came to Olivia's office. He stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. It was strange to see him in professional clothes again, his company badge hanging around his neck. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for everything." Olivia gestured for him to sit. "You don't need to thank me, I was just doing my job." "No." Jack shook his head. "You did more than your job. You risked your career for a man you didn't even know. Most people wouldn't have done that." "Most people didn't have my reasons." Jack was quiet for a moment. "Your father. You told me about what happened to him. He never got justice. He never got anyone to stand up for him." Olivia's voice softened. "I couldn't save him, but I could save you." Jack nodded slowly, understanding. "I think you saved yourself, too." 1 year later, on a cold December evening, the city held its annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony in the Central Park. Jack stood in the crowd with Emily beside him, her hand warm in his. She was 8 years old now, taller, more confident, less burdened by the weight of adult worries. Olivia arrived late, weaving through the crowd until she found them. She had come directly from the office, where she had been finalizing a new employee protection initiative that would launch in the new year. Emily spotted her first and waved excitedly. "Ms. Olivia, you made it!" Olivia smiled as she reached them. "I wouldn't miss it." Emily grabbed her hand and pulled her closer so that the three of them stood together, facing the enormous unlit tree at the center of the park. "Did you ever learn how to draw a snowman?" Emily asked. "I can still teach you if you want. I think I need a lot more practice." "That's okay. We have time." Jack looked at the two of them standing side by side. A year ago, he had been working night shifts at a gas station while his daughter slept in the car, convinced that the world had no place for people like him. Now he had his job back, his dignity restored, and something else he had not expected to find. He did not know what the future held for him and Olivia. They had spent the past year as friends, supporting each other through the aftermath of everything that had happened. Maybe someday it would become something more. Maybe it wouldn't. But for the first time in years, Jack felt like he had possibilities again. The countdown began. The crowd chanted the numbers together, their voices rising into the cold night air. The lights came on. Thousands of tiny bulbs burst to life, transforming the tree into a tower of gold and white. Emily gasped with delight. The crowd cheered. Olivia stood quietly, watching the lights reflect in the faces around her. She thought about her father, about the justice he never received, about the years she had spent trying to build a system that would protect people like him. She had finally done it, not by following the rules, but by breaking them when the rules were wrong. Jack glanced over at her. "Thank you," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "For what?" "For believing I was worth saving." Olivia looked at him, then at Emily, whose face was glowing with pure happiness as she watched the lights. "You both were." The three of them stood together in the glow of the Christmas tree, no longer strangers, no longer enemies. Just three people who had found each other when they needed it most. Not a fairy tale, not a perfect ending, just a new beginning.